Hello YouTube, this is Ben Gessel. I know it's just kind of an evening walk, and it's just kind of area nearby where I live in the evening, so do apologize if it's a bit dark, but sometimes I think better when I'm walking. It all depends, I guess. I know I put out, kind of a fair number of videos about the subject, but I might go to a few different subjects tonight. But this video is also a little bit more intended for maybe folks that don't live by a very high quality grocery store. Everything is a little bit cheaper and maybe not quite as high quality, but it's just that you don't live, there's not a nicer grocery store in the area. But one of the things, it's just there's a lot of things that have changed a lot, quite a bit. You have it's just over the last 30 years. During the last 30 years, things have just everything is different than when I was a boy. Everything. When I was little, it was considered healthy to have diet things and low-fat things, and grains were praised, and we said fruits and vegetables were healthy, but we didn't really put a heck of a lot of stock in those things. And we also still had the, eat your meat and dairy thing going on a lot more. And, there's all kinds of subjects regarding, again, food nutrition that I won't get into with this video. And I'm focusing more on maybe the folks that are still kind of thinking along those lines, that are maybe getting on years a little bit, or middle-aged, or not too young, and that still remember those times when that was what we were taught. And now it's it's a very vegetable and fruit and bean and nut and not so much grains anymore type of thing. The thing is I wanted to say, with all these new things we've been learning about nutrition, and scientists have been researching and learning about, it confirms what we know. But the thing is this is the crux of what I'm trying to think about here. I'm sure, I hopefully haven't mentioned this too much in the past. So some of us are very physically active, whether or not it's a recreational thing, or whether it's like a exercise regimen, or it has to do with work, or whether it's just, whatever. Many of us have different, I'm gonna actually go down a different street here. That's right. But many of us have different caloric needs, and many of us are very busy. We're always on the road, or always in a hurry. And it's, to me, when I see some folks that seem like they're very relaxed and laid back, or maybe it's just a facade, or it's a personality, or maybe they're just really good at acting very calm online. When I see people that seem like they're not very hurried, and they're talking about nutrition in such a way that they're, eating foods that are higher quality, but not necessarily always very calorie dense, I have to say to myself, do you work for a living? What do you do for work? I'm sure they get not enough income to do what they need to do. But, some of us are really busy. We just don't have time to have salads all the time. Now, we know we should be eating salad. It's just, that stuff is great for you, but it only has 30, 50 calories, something like that. So, try to get some salads in there, but it's hard to do that. I'm not talking about just like the steel workers and the construction workers and things. although they do come to mind. I'm talking, just anybody who burns in excess over 3,000 calories a day, or even 2,500, or just definitely over 2,000. And bigger guys, but also just more active individuals that are in a big hurry, that don't want to mess with foods even that are easier to prepare, that really aren't a hassle to make, but are just not as, they don't stay with you as long, or at least anyway, if you know what I'm talking about. So again, this video is really more, it's not just for blue collar folks, but it's anybody who's more physically active. And also a lot of folks who just can't afford, buying strawberries every day. And actually that last bit, to me, it's a bit more of a, it should be talked about. It's kind of sensitive. It's kind of that's not cool. There's a lot of things about this world that are very evil and not right, and that's just one of a gazillion things. But when you think about the fact that yes, you probably should be having soaked nuts like walnuts and cashews, you should be eating a little bit more fish and with low mercury, and you should be eating all kinds of plant foods that we just sometimes don't have the time to eat, or they're not very calorie dense, or berries and things. We just a lot of times it's just, gosh, that fast food burger, it's there, it has the calories, it doesn't have all the micronutrients, but it's and so it's evil, it's wrong that folks that are not as well-to-do are exploited every day. It's satanic, in fact. And a lot of people don't understand how evil that is. And it's like, sometimes you just don't know how wrong something is until you are in a situation where you look back on it and you say, whoa, that was really messed up. I can't believe I made it through that time. And what I want is for people, sometimes you just can't get out of a situation. We can't make more money. We just have to keep hoping for the best in the future. But despite all that, just again to keep this a little bit more succinct, maybe. So there's a lot of videos that talked about eating on a budget and that sort of thing. One of the things there's some things that keep coming back to me, and I was just going over this with my parents just a little bit, and that is that it really is a good idea, a very good idea, to base, I think this can apply to a lot of folks, but try to base your diet around some healthy and economical foods that really we should all be eating some of. And there's things that can help get into that kind of pattern of eating these things. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about here is, and I know this is, I'm not a vegan, so the first thing is getting a little bit of eggs in your diet. Eggs are one of the best, cheapest proteins. Organic eggs, if you can afford them. If you can't afford organic eggs, then regular eggs are fine. But you need the whole egg. It has nutrients that are a little harder to find in other foods, like vitamin D. That's, and also iodine. So if you don't eat a lot of fish or seaweed and you don't take a vitamin D supplement, you need those eggs. I'm not just talking to black folks, I'm talking to everyone, right? But yeah, a lot of times it's harder to get the vitamin D you need, especially if you live farther north, right? So I just mentioned eggs. Mushrooms. Now, button mushrooms, they also have vitamin D. And if you get the button mushrooms, they're not quite as pricey. And really, mushrooms aren't too bad, and I don't think they're tasty enough for us to want to get a ton of them. But they're good to include in your diet. They have things, again, that aren't found too often anywhere else. a little bit, just need a little bit. Put them with your meat and your pasta. If you like Alfredo sauce, put them in there. So eggs and button mushrooms. Another thing that's, well, especially cheaper. Now there's a whole different vegetables. There's so many different kinds of cheaper vegetables. Most vegetables are really cheap. So when it comes to vegetables, for me, I just know which ones are my favorites. I try to have a high tolerance for a bunch of them. So if I eat at someone else's house and they're serving different kinds of vegetables, I'll be okay with those too. And on my entire life, the only vegetables that I've ever had any aversion to are basically just things like lima beans, but they're just kind of tasteless. Lima beans and it just depends on how you make them. Sometimes beets aren't super appetizing, but they're not too bad. I still think the East Europeans, the Russians, make them the best. But anyway, so yeah, borscht and stuff. Yeah. But really, it's your choice with vegetables. You just need to have some of them, and make some of them for your salad, and make some of them side or a sizable portion of your plate for dinner and stuff. And carrots and celery for lunch, and even sliced cucumber. But that's probably better for salads. Anyway, but it needs to be a priority. And again, they're cheap, but they're not very calorie dense. So I know that's not what I want to dwell on just on that. With fruit, and guys, there's a list you can look online. The USDA has their prices of different produce. And among the cheapest produce are bananas, grapefruit, certain kinds of melons, like cantaloupe and honeydew, even watermelon, I think. And also apples aren't too bad, and pears are middling. Sometimes you can get berries. If it's always worth it to get berries, just a box of them, blueberries or strawberries, but more when they're in season. Sometimes you get them frozen and put them on stuff. But I think it's worth the cost, but it's not really worth it to get the super expensive ones, really, for a lot of times, if they're out of season, they're just not very good anyway. But either in season berries or frozen, and use them, kind of dethaw them a little bit, the ones that you're going to use. I think it's also wise to get, as far as fuel food, have some nuts on hand. Peanuts, almonds, walnuts. If you can, soak them just overnight. But nuts are very, very filling, and they have a lot of nutrients, a lot of minerals. And, a lot of times grains have been our staple because, they're cheap, and they have a lot of nutrients. But they're increasingly seen as not being very healthy, or at least not as healthy as we once thought they were. So if you were to replace grains, with bread, things with other things, it doesn't make sense to replace them with nuts, somewhat beans, a little bit. Non-glutinous grains are okay, but increasingly I think potatoes are one of the best foods you could possibly get that are cheaper. But and sweet potatoes for their potassium and everything. But I still think rice is great to have. But it's just a question of that phytic acid, and still research being done on that stuff. But but cheaper nuts. And kind of like berries, some nuts get a little pricey. So, but I still think it's worth it to get walnuts in there, and almonds. And peanuts are, of course, a little cheaper. And seeds are generally pretty cheap. You don't have to get the exotic stuff. Just stick with, sunflower, pumpkin, and maybe a few other ones you like. And then here's the thing about dairy too. I think that just like meat or just like beef, dairy, the healthy stuff is grass-fed stuff. Now, I'm not going to say this is one of the things that just seems to be kind of a leftover from earlier times. We seem to think that corn-fed meat, beef, and corn-fed dairy products, they're great for you. Well, the truth is they're not candy, so of course they have nutrients, but they're not as good for you as stuff that's grass-fed. The grass-fed dairy and beef and stuff like that is very expensive, so we just often can't afford it. More especially for families and stuff, and just in a kind of a regular thing. So what do you do? What do you do? what do you do with the whole dairy meat end of things? Well, and of course, a lot of people still get conventional chicken rather than organic chicken. I think organic chicken can be a bigger part of one's diet. But I think when it comes to dairy and meat, the truth is, we probably just need to have less of it. And if we have a lot of it, if we have some of it, sometimes you can only afford the conventional stuff. And so the conventional stuff really has to be kept to a minimum. Now, this is hard to do. If you're really physically active and you don't make a whole lot of money, it's hard. Because I mentioned nuts are very calorie dense, and so it's a good thing to eat, but they're not quite as appetizing sometimes as meat. And meat is just sometimes, look, if I was walking all the time in New York City, those guys on the sidewalks, what are they serving? They're serving hot dogs. Why is that? Because hot dogs taste amazing. And they can charge a moderate price, or actually a little bit pricey, but not quite as bad as some places, right? But these are good-sized dogs, and yeah, would they sell as much if they sold nuts or beans? Or they're not going to sell as much. They're not going to make as much money, generally speaking, as if they sold meat, right? Sometimes some folks like the spicy stuff, like from Middle East or India or whatever, and I would think that would probably be a little healthier than just hot dogs. No offense to the Polish and Germans and stuff. But the thing is a lot of us just find ourselves in a situation where we're starving to death. And, either we bring a sack lunch that has filling, nutritious food, which is hard to do sometimes, depending on how the weather is, and, if you have access to a fridge to keep your lunch, or all kinds of stuff. So if you're looking for a healthy spot, a healthy place of filling food, so many places with beef, and beef is always tempting. So what do? Well, if you eat conventional meat, and a fair amount of it, right, conventional dairy, you have to balance that with a lot more healthy produce when you get home. And when you get to a different situation, right, or if you can vary it up a little bit by having, whatever, like, just, less of the, these, I hate to say it, a Philly cheesesteak. Oh my gosh. It's refined flour bread. It's conventional cheese. Just, and it's conventional meat. Corn-fed stuff. You can have a huge, mouth-watering Philly cheesesteak. Kind of putting the finger at not just Italians and Europeans and stuff, but also some of the African Americans that like to pig out one of these things. But it's kind of an East Coast thing, not just an East Coast thing, right? To have these huge Philly cheesesteaks, but they're not healthy. They have a lot of calories. It'll help your muscles, all that stuff. I understand that. If you're going to get away from that, realistically speaking, what it means is finding a healthier restaurant nearby where you work, if it's something more active, more often, right? By healthy, I mean higher quality stuff that's not going to break the bank, right? It means eating healthier when you're home and you're out. If you eat out, it means avoiding a lot of stuff. And the rest of your coworkers are all going out to eat somewhere, you say, who wants to go to this other place that has even better tasting food? It's not going to be too expensive. So this is, I can make another video about this. It would help to, of course, live in Philadelphia or these certain other locales, Atlanta, whatever else that has certain kinds of restaurants. I can only speak for Seattle, Tacoma. I know about other places, but I know it's hard. I know this kind of thing is really hard. But the reason I think it's important and make YouTube videos amongst other subjects and make them about this subject is because if you are healthier when you're younger, to whatever extent you're healthier, you can live longer and have a more fruitful life when you get older, right? So you don't just die when you're 40. That's ridiculous, or 50 or whatever. So you can enjoy life. You want to be able to enjoy that Philly cheesesteak, I understand. I mean, I had, my landlord gave me one, but I haven't had, that was the first time I ever had one. It was not too long ago. Didn't really taste amazing to me. Sure, it was good, but I'm not going to buy them. And with pizza, I haven't had a pizza for I don't know how long. I had Mongolian Grill today, but I mean, the beef was probably the most unhealthy thing. The beef was calorie dense, and I, had other healthy things today aside from that stuff. I had all the vegetables in the Mongolian Grill. I had, I try to have a variety of things. The thing to avoid is you don't want to just always be having refined flour or starches. Although potato is probably better than refined grains, but you don't want to just have dairy, meat, and refined grains with a carrot and celery stick. That's the old America. I'm trying to change things. So a lot of folks are trying to help people out by saying there's not a 10 commandments of the old way of thinking about food. It's not like you have to try to break out of that way of thinking. So I mentioned eggs, mushrooms, veggies, some cheaper fruits. The importance of getting a few different kinds of nuts and seeds in your diet, and beans, and a few healthier grains with no gluten. And then, and dairy, meat a little bit. With regard to water purification, I think it's also worth it, but only if you can afford it. Again, it's not a huge priority. I know the major concerns are fluorine and chlorine, that sort of thing, in water. But, of course, the thing you don't want to do is have soda all the time. But juice is better than soda, but not that much better. Nobody likes vegetable juice unless you're into that stuff. And herbal tea is not super sweet. I personally think, this goes with dairy, chocolate almond milk, or the almond milks, the rice milks. They're a little bit more expensive again. Maybe not very economical for a family, but it's worth it nutrition-wise in the long run. Or maybe have one regular milk and one almond milk, or one banana milk or coconut milk or something. And just try some of that stuff more. And chocolate makes it go down better. And then just watch the fats. I mean, anyway, I will catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.